Welcome to the TOCA Backstage podcast. Join TOCA's Executive Director, Chris Wolf, in conversations with the artists and people behind the scenes of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation's performances and events.
Hi, this is Chris Wolf with the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation. It is my great honor to be speaking with Kathy Kosins from the first of our cabaret shows. And actually, before I say the title of the show, we were just talking before we started, and the actual title of the show is To the Ladies of Cool. It's a tribute to the women who defined West Coast jazz. But you were just saying that you had, you're going, for us in Torrance, you're going to do something a little special. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, so To the Ladies of Cool is an homage to Anita O'Day, Julie London, June Christy, and Chris Connor. And I actually recorded that album in Los Angeles in 2012. And it's been time tested and very successful. And I've toured it all over the world. They love it in Europe. And I'm also a contemporary soul and R&B artist. I have two sides of me. And people usually know me or book me as one genre or the other. I don't usually mix genres at performance venues. However, within the last year, I said, maybe I should start doing that. And maybe people in the audience would appreciate two sides of the same coin, I call it, because I'm singing with the same voice. It's just used a little differently. So I thought, why not do To the Ladies of Cool in the first set, and then in the second set, flip the script and call it Cool Ladies, and do some of my original material, which has been very well received, both in the US and in Europe. I've been on a lot of radio platforms and in the top 5 with this record, and in the number 1, and then in the top 3 with that. So maybe 4 songs or so from my own book, and then songs from other contemporary female artists such as Brenda Russell, maybe something from Dionne Warwick, maybe something from Roberta Flack, and she just passed away, but it wouldn't be Feel Like Making Love because that's just too obvious. Things of that nature. And so I thought, well, we'll do To the Ladies of Cool and then Cool Ladies. And the audience will be able to get 2 completely different perspectives of my vocals, my vocalizations, and my material.
That's, it sounds amazing, and I personally can't wait. And just, I don't know if anyone watching this will take the time, but they should go onto your website, because there's your bio is there, and it lists all the accolades from the rave reviews, the awards, and I found it interesting that even your most recent single, Aurora's Light, has earned you the most played vocalist on Sirius XM, which is in itself a great accolade. But I'm curious that
that was an anomaly, by the way. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
That Aurora's Light is it's regarded as the goddess of the dawn. And we sold that synopsis as we were rolling it out to radio. And I had not been on Sirius XM since 2018. And all of a sudden, the song had been out. It came out in late January. All of a sudden, in April of 2025, they picked it up, and it's been on regular rotation. And it caused me to be the most played vocalist on that particular station, Channel 66, Watercolors, which is a smooth jazz radio platform And I don't think of myself as a smooth jazz singer, but if they want to call me a smooth jazz singer and they're paying big royalties every time that song gets played, I'll take it.
That's great. Um,
And that will be played, that will be performed on stage in your theater for both of those evenings.
Great. Um, and just maybe you can help me because I've had this issue with audience members in the past. What where I will book a jazz artist and they will come up to me and say, "Well, that's not jazz." How do you, as a jazz performer or as part of one of the hats that you wear, a jazz performer, how would you describe jazz, but more importantly, West Coast jazz?
Oh, wow. I can't even put a description on jazz anymore because it has morphed, especially since I want to say 2016 going forward. You have artists such as Robert Glasper and Esperanza Spalding, and um, you have a wealth of jazz artists performing very modern versions of old school R&B or original material. Um, and it's so right there, jazz is not what it was. It was something completely different in the 1950s, 60s, and even 70s, and even into the 80s with people like Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea um, playing their versions of jazz, their original jazz. So you can't even put a title on it anymore. It's music, but it's not the jazz music that was played in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. That music of Miles Davis, of John Coltrane, of Bud Powell and Charlie Parker, and um, uh, Dinah Washington, and singers like um, Carmen McRae and Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald. Today's jazz is not that music anymore. So, and West Coast cool is a completely different form of jazz that was very prevalent in the 1950s and 60s. West Coast cool was more laid back, and the arrangements were very melodic, whereas East Coast jazz was very frenetic and more bebopish, uh, more Charlie Parker, more John Coltrane, more that kind of music. Whereas West Coast jazz, more Henry Mancini, more Johnny Mandel. Uh, um, oh, wow. I wish I had had my thinking cap on for this because there were so many jazz musicians. It actually started at the Lighthouse Jazz Club because Stan Kenton's bassist, by the way, Stan Getz was also a West Coast school musician. His bassist started a jazz Sunday afternoon jazz series. It's in Hermosa Beach and it's still there. It's called The Lighthouse. And he started a Sunday afternoon and it went into the wee hours of the evening till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, a jazz jam session and series. And that really put the spin on West Coast jazz. That's where it became a title, West Coast Jazz. It started from that series. And if I went back, if I had known you were going to ask me these questions, I would have been a little more prepared. And I would have had names, dates, and more timely things to contribute.
No,
But yeah, that's when it started in California
it's
at the
perfectly
famous.
fine. I only asked just because, I mean, the West Coast, it's interesting because I know that it almost seems like um, there is two set dynamics of music on either coast, because you'll get like I had conversations with Liberty DeVito, the drummer from Billy Joel, who said that it was like New York drumming, and it's like, well, I didn't know there was a difference between East Coast and West Coast drumming, or even like modern day hip hop, or there seems to be two schools of East and West Coast. So when I heard West Coast jazz, I was like, well, is it really different, or is it?
Yes.
And if so, what
Yes.
makes it different?
It's more laid back, and some of the solos and the vocalists will sing lines together. In other words, you might hear a guitar solo being played, and the singer will come in at some point and sing the exact same phrasing as that guitar. Those kinds of arrangements were very prevalent in West Coast jazz, whereas in on the East Coast, it was more frenetic and even more improvisational, where it was more orchestrated on the West Coast. I don't know really how to say it any more clearly than that. It was a feeling and it was an arrangement that made West Coast jazz more relaxed, more laid back, but with real orchestrations and real arrangements. Where on the East Coast, um, when it was time to blow solos, people were just blowing endless solos over those changes with less orchestration. The head of the song, in other words, um, when they played the head, they would play it together, but then they would take off on a lot of solos over the changes. In West Coast jazz, it was more orchestrated and more arranged.
I think
Um,
I think that's a perfect description, because when you're talking about that, I can actually hear it in my head, the differences between, like you said, the solos and
right.
the less
A
orchestrated.
real good example of West Coast cool would be Jackie and Roy Kral, who was the brother of a wonderful West Coast singer by the name of Irene Kral, who passed away at a very young age. But Jackie and Roy were husband and wife. And if you go back and you dig out some Jackie and Roy recordings, you will hear those arrangements. You will hear Jackie singing certain melodic lines with a guitar. And when I did this album, To the Ladies of Cool, the arranger that worked on this record, Tamir Hendelman, who's a really wonderful jazz pianist. Uh, he plays out nowadays with Tierney Sutton, but he also did a lot of work with Barbara Streisand over the last several years. He's a wonderful arranger, and he has a sensibility about how to work with a vocalist. So he did his homework when we started arranging this particular album, To the Ladies of Cool. He wrote some of those notations in the songs. So you will hear me sing on some of these songs along with the piano or along with the guitar. So we're doubling each other. And it's true West Coast school music.
Well, it sounds like a delight. I can't wait to hear it. And I'm curious, for you as a performer, um, who has this great catalog of genres that you deal with, um, from West Coast jazz to, like you said, more R&B. Uh, and this is probably really a silly question, but do you have a favorite genre?
They're both favorite because they each give me a different mood. They each fill a lot of passion in me. I'm passionate about both genres. There's no one over the other. They're equal, but they're completely separate. So when I'm singing straight ahead jazz or West Coast cool, my head is in, and my heart and my soul is in that space. I can flip on a dime and in the very next song do something from my soul R&B catalog, and I'm living the moment with each one of those genres. So when I'm singing soul and R&B, my head is in that space, and my heart and soul are in that space. And when I'm singing Ladies of Cool material or other jazz material, my head is in that space. And if I'm singing something out of the blues repertoire, then it's almost mixed. You get a little of each. And so I can delve into each. And I'll tell you who was fabulous at that. And I was on the road with him for quite a few years, and he passed away in 2017, was a wonderful jazz and blues singer by the name of Kevin Mahogany. And he could sing the blues and scat his way through the blues. So he was doing both in the very same breath. And there's singers that can do that. And then there's singers that cannot. And they're completely one separate from the next. I just happen to have that kind of a voice. And it's because I grew up when I was a little kid in the Motown era. And I grew up with soul and R&B. And it wasn't until much, and I started in that genre. It wasn't until much, much later that I started writing for jazz vocalists. I was writing for Diane Reeves and Nancy Wilson and Cleo Lane at the time. Nobody ever recorded any of those jazz songs that I wrote, but I had it in my head that I wanted to write for those artists. And I put them all on tape in a recording studio in New York with the band. And I was ready to start sending all this material to their managers and their record labels. And a small record label right here outside of Detroit in a college town in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where University of Michigan is, heard the work. He heard the work on a cassette tape, and he said, I have a label. And they were also a store. They were a record store and a record label. He signed me. That was my first album deal. School Kids Records. And that album was called All in a Dream's Work. And that record, if you had taken my vocals off that album, it sounds like East Coast jazz. I was writing in the style of Miles Davis, almost, with lyrics. And I had a manager at the time, and it didn't really go anywhere. And then album 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 came out. And after the 6th studio album, the record label that I record for over the last many years now, School Kids went out of business. And the owner and I are dear friends. And he attends many of my performances here in the Detroit area. And I said to him a couple of weeks ago, I said, Steve, I wish you still had your label. They gave me money. I mean, they gave me a huge advance, and they gave me all the stock back when they went out of business. I got like 3,000 albums back, and I have 5 left. I have 5 records left. And I've tried to buy up stock online. Every now and again, I'll find a handful of them and I buy them. It's out of print. So the record label that I'm with now is a one-man band. And he said, you know what? We're going to start putting out singles because it's digital world now. Not a lot of people are buying CDs. Not a lot of people are spending a lot of money to make an album if they can't sell the album and make their money back with product. So, and some people still do, and I completely get that, but he's putting out singles one at a time. You can only play one song on radio at a time. If you give a radio station a CD, you can suggest what they should play, but they're going to play whatever they want. And then the record has 7 to 10 weeks at radio, and it's usually NPR, jazz radio, and then you're done. This way, every 3 months, we put out another single. And I get it, and I really like that idea.
Um,
So that's where I'm at today.
we and also before we started recording, I couldn't help but notice the beautiful picture behind you, and that's something you created on stage. Tell me about that process.
No, yes, big. That one's to create on stage. That one is 4 feet by 3 feet. But when I do create on stage, and I have an art studio in my home downstairs, and I have artwork all over the house. And when I create on stage, it's usually a 12 to a 20 square inch, 20-inch square, 12-inch square, 14-inch square, 16-inch square, something no bigger than 20. And I let the band play one, maybe two songs if it's a larger piece. And it's an improvisation on canvas. And I'm painting what I hear. And I teach an art class in it called Improvisation on Canvas. And it's a painting to jazz masterclass. It's a 3-hour workshop where I guide the students into hearing color and seeing sound based on a curated Spotify playlist of jazz material, both old and modern. And the students walk away with incredible work, incredible work. And some of these students have never picked up a brush before. And I don't use traditional paintbrushes. I bring in all kinds of hardware store tools and foam brushes. And I was hoping to do this in the Torrance cultural and the arts, make that work this time.
Well, I hope we can bring you back for that, because that sounds like something I personally would like to do, and I know it does.
You would take it, yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like a
Yes,
great
and I'm in
experience.
California 3 or 4 times a year, so maybe we can look at that another time.
Absolutely. So one of the things besides presenting shows like the one you're coming out to do in October, one of the things that we try to do in Torrance, in the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation, is encourage and mentor young performers who want to sort of start their career as a performer with this great catalog, with this great experience and depth of talent, from painting to singing to writing. What words of advice would you give to a young performer wanting to start their career?
Don't quit your day job. Don't ever quit your day job. An agent said that to me once, and there's a lot of truth to that, but people have to follow their passion. And I mean, I gave up a lot for this career. I gave up children, marriage. I gave up things that most people won't sacrifice so I could do this 24/7 all year long. And that's all I've done with my life. I've sacrificed a great many things so I could just do music. And since the early 1990s, also visual. My visual career has taken off now. So I'm in a few galleries, and I have 2 careers. I have music and art. What I would say to students and young people really wanting to do this is don't just do one style of music. You will put yourself in a little box, and it's harder to find work that way. If you do multiple things, like I do, you'll have more opportunities to work. And that doesn't mean you should do one style and 50% the other, but you have to dedicate a certain many hours in each day to both genres. And a lot of students, because I've been at colleges and universities all over the country working with college age students wanting to go professionally into music, and some of them do, and they end up in orchestras or orchestra pits for musical theater. And there's nothing wrong with that, because even if they're not having a solo career and they're working inside of a bigger uh, consortium than just as a solo artist, there's still a lot to be said for that. Maybe what they so my music teacher for early childhood music development. And as long as they're doing something in the genre, even if it's not what they had their heart set on, then it's a bigger picture, and it's just as valuable. I mean, I've done many things. I've been a background session singer for other acts. I made it. I'm not a household name. And I never got to the point where I really wanted to, but I have had a career now in this business as a performer for 45 plus years. And that's all I've ever done. And now you add the visual side to that from 1990, but it's really has taken off, I want to say, from 2015 till now. So in the last 10 years, my visual career has really taken off. And I have clients and I'm doing artwork, and it's all jazz improvisational work. So there's still a tie-in. It's also the other side of the music side of the, so it's the other side of the same coin. One is visual and one is oral. And most venues where I perform want me to pop up a little canvas, and I will use a music stand as an easel, and I will bring a small amount of paints because I don't want to spill a drop on anybody's stage. And I'll do a painting or two. And I use foam brushes and a couple of little things that I bring in a little tiny Ziploc bag, and things can be thrown away. So there's no muss, no fuss. And 90% of the time, somebody will buy the painting from me right off the stage when it's still wet. And sometimes what I will do, if the theater or the venue wants a piece of that from the sales, then we'll donate it, and they can use it for a charity or for their non-for-profit if it's a non-for-profit way of working. Other thing I would say to young students is learn how to be negotiable. You learn how to negotiate. Learn how to be negotiable. Learn how to be amenable to bending whatever it is you're trying to do, because it may work the way you envision it, but it might work out in a completely different way, which will still give you a lot of satisfaction, and you might be benefiting younger people as well. So that would be my advice.
Great words of wisdom. I do appreciate that. So just as a reminder, it's I guess we're going to call it a two-part show. There's the Ladies of Cool and the Cool Ladies on Friday and Saturday, October 24th and 25th at the Nakano Theater. Tickets are still available. It's a lovely evening in an intimate space, and you're just going to be amazed at the wonderful vocals that you provide. I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
I have an amazing trio back those evenings. On piano, John Leftwich on bass, and G. Coy on drums. And they're going to make me look good. I couldn't be more thrilled to have this group of guys backing me. And thank you so much for the time.
Oh, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Those who came before me had so much to say. I listened to their stories as I tried to find my way. With all the miles behind me, but many more to go.